Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. As I promised a little while ago, I put this video together to show how I made my Furness Railway K2 using a 3D print from Shapeways, Graham Farish Black 5 chassis and some other bits and pieces. Hope you enjoy it. So being a modeller of Cumberland Railways, I'm always on the lookout for locomotives and rolling stock that ran in that area. And one time period I really like is the pre-grouping period, where in Cumbria you had the Furness Railway, the LNWR, and the Workington and Maryport Railway, amongst others. And so when I came across this Furness Railway K2 on Shapeways, I thought, yeah, got to have that. The actual K2s themselves were mostly used on heavy passenger services by the Furness Railway. I did find a YouTube video that kind of goes into a bit more detail about the design and their uses, so I'll put the link for that in the description. I think eventually they were replaced by the Furness Railway Baltic tanks, which are another kit that I plan to make at some point. And it's also apparently the engine that Thomas Tank Engines Edward was based on, although I have seen other locomotives suggested for that too. The 3D print is from Sparkshot Custom Creations, which you can find on the Shapeways website. So you can see in this picture the locomotive, the engine, and it does come with a tender as well, but which I did order, but I found I couldn't actually fit the wheels into the tender, so I didn't end up using that in the end. So more on that later on. He does have quite a few Furness Railway locomotives as well that I bought, including the Baltic tank that I mentioned earlier and a J1, but these haven't progressed much yet. But when I do, I'll put an update on my Facebook page, and also maybe get around to doing a video on YouTube if it's particularly interesting. Not long after it arriving from the Netherlands, I think that's where they're from, I ended up losing the smoke box door, which wasn't a great start. But I did find a replacement from N Brass Locos, who happened to have one that exactly matched the dimensions of the one I was missing. So that was good. So that was just a case of gluing that in, which is why you'll see a nice shiny brass door rather than the plastic one that should be there. I did spend a lot of time thinking about how to fit a chassis to the body, and yeah, wasn't really making any progress with it. But it was a kind of a mishap with an old LMS Black 5 that I had from Graham Farish that I've had for absolutely ages, had it since I was a kid. But that broke catastrophically. The couplings went awry, and the whole thing just fell to pieces. So I thought, well, maybe I could use that. The dimensions of the wheels and the chassis aren't that far off the K2 of what it would actually be in real life. So yeah, so all I need to do is so I removed the motor and the gearing mechanism and the coupling rods to kind of the basic chassis and wheels, because I realised quite early on that I wasn't going to be able to fit a motor into the body because there really wasn't enough room. One of the first modification I made after that was kind of taking a razor to the sort of the driving wheels, because the K2, as you've seen from the images, is a 440, not a 460 like the Black 5. So for that, I used a razor saw, which took a while, but did manage to remove the back set of wheels. So I then realised that the front pony chassis was also too long and kind of stuck out too far in front of the buffers. Um, so what I decided to do is drill another hole for the pony chassis screw, so it was kind of closer to the driving wheels, which yeah looked fine. But the problem with that was that the metal connector between the pony well from the pony chassis was kind of rubbing against the driving wheel chassis and didn't move freely. Um, so what I did was ditch the screw and kind of used a bit of brass wire instead, which kind of allowed, and also the metal connector. And yeah, that kind of works a lot better. Well, it moves more freely. It looks a little bit odd, and you need to be careful holding it, but it does the job, I think. I then was looking at the pony chassis, and I decided I didn't really like the look of it compared to the real thing, and I decided to make some modifications to it. Um, so to fill in the gap between the chassis and the running boards, I used laser plasticard that I painted black, which looked a lot better. And I also added some card to try and replicate the sides of the pony chassis on the K2, and added some guide irons as well, and then painted the whole thing India red and black. And the only other modifications I made to the rest of the body um, was adding some brake piping at the front. Um, from I think I got those from N Brass Locos. Also some local lamps from Springside Models. And there's also in the real thing you can see there's like a pipe from the smoke box down to the pistons, I think, that I wanted to recreate. So I used some thick wire, which I painted in a brass colour to replicate that. And also realised I lost my safety valves somehow along throughout the build, and so I used some offcuts from other plastic kits to replicate those. And then once all that was done, I kind of painted it in India red and black. Although I did kind of do this iteratively, so I explained it as like a linear process. I did kind of paint it, add a few little bits, paint, go back, paint it a little bit more. But yeah. In terms of power, the original um, plan was to use this small K2 motor um, to provide the power, but it soon became obvious that it wasn't powerful enough, and I needed to try something else. And it was while I was browsing Shapeways again that I came across this 3D print, which fits a larger K2 motor that I've used previously on my Furness Railway rail motor. The kit from Newman's Miniatures comes in two pieces. It's like a tender and then the chassis that fits around it. And there's a good video on the Shapeways site that explains how you do this. So what you do is to fit the motor into the tender, you need to remove the motor housing, which I did using a razor saw to kind of cut the buffers off at each end, which was fairly easy compared to the Black 5 chassis that I'd butchered earlier. The other modification needed was to file the sides of the motor because they've got some impressions of the chassis on there and they need to be smooth to fit the new chassis around it. So that was easy to file them so they're nice and smooth. And after that, the two pieces just neatly slide onto one another, and then you've got a motorized chassis, admittedly oversized for um, the engine it is pushing, but yeah, it looks alright to me. So the tender was then painted in India red and black, again like the locomotive. Added decals from Fox Transfers, who do a Furness Railway logo. Also added some real coal using PVA glue on top of the tender, because I think that looks quite good. Between the locomotive and the tender, I also added a piece of card to ensure that the two stay appropriately separated. And at this point, I should probably confess that yeah, they're currently not connected, so there's no connection or physical connection between the locomotive and the tender, which is fine when they're going forwards. They just push one of the tender just pushes the locomotive along, and I will. There is a plan, or a set of ideas to connect them at some point, but that's a job for another day. And to be honest, on my nice flat layouts, they run fine as it is, so it's I'm not in a rush to sort it. And yeah, that's how I made it. It is a bit Heath Robinson in places. I sure could have done a neater job in other places, but yeah, it runs well. I really like it, and I'm really happy with it. So if you've enjoyed this video, hope you found it interesting, let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll see you all next time.